I'm Krinjak.
And I'm Fox 7 Austin's chief political reporter, Rudy Koski. The polls just closed in the Lone Star State, but if you're one of the thousands still in line, then you still have a chance to stay in line, and you can still vote.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. Even if someone tells you otherwise, they're wrong. You can vote.
Stay in line.
Yeah. Fox 7 Austin's Katie Pratt is live at a polling location in South Austin. And Katie, how are things looking there?
Hey guys, so the polls did officially close for the 2024 election. You can't really see outside the line, but if you peek inside, I'd say there's fewer than a dozen people left in line still waiting to cast their ballot. This is the third location we've been at today. Earlier we went to Carver Branch Library in East Austin, where people said their vote was pretty easy. They were in and out in about 10 minutes. Here at Austin City Hall, they've had some of the longer wait times, hitting an estimate of about an hour, but it really hasn't seemed that bad. People have been enjoying the process. There's 176 polling locations in Travis County. All of the wait times, I've been checking them throughout the day, have been about 0 to 20 minutes. So that's in the green. That's really not bad at all. About 51% of registered voters in Travis County did vote early this election. So maybe that's why we really haven't been seeing those long wait times this year. But for now, I'm reporting live at City Hall. Katie Pratt, I'm going to send it back to you guys.
You know, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, she raised that point in regards to the voter turnout. Now, it's not as big as what we saw in 2020 because the pandemic that factored in, people a lot of mail-in and all that. But it's still a big number.
It is.
So the question is that did everybody that was going to vote?
Yeah.
And now, when I did a news conference with Travis County yesterday, they said, well, we could expect anywhere from 100,000 to 200,000. That's a big gap.
Yeah.
Maybe it's going to be the 100K.
Yeah, it's hard to make those comparisons between 2020 and 2024 because obviously, we had high early turnout this year, but it was like stretched out over more days back in 2020. So I feel like we're just going to find out when we find out.
Yeah, everyone's saying, compare it to 2016. Don't do it to 2020. But even with 2016, yeah, we may be close to par.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't feel like 2016.
Yeah, a lot of people voting. I voted early. It was super easy.
All right, let's move along. And the next big question, other than should I stay in line or not, and we already saw that. Stay in line. Stay in line. Could Austin elect a new mayor tonight? Mayor Kurt Watson, he's the incumbent. He's up for re-election this year, facing off against 4 opponents. And let's take a look at those results right now and see how things are coming in with those numbers. Well, we don't have the numbers yet right now, but we have Kurt Watson, the incumbent, Jerry Bowen. Yeah,
we got Doug Greco, Carmen Yanis Polito, and Kathy Tovo, if that name sounds familiar, former city council member.
It is a good group. There's been a very spirited debate among them all. But Kurt Watson is a political machine. He was a state senator, a former mayor before then. Went to Houston, University of Houston for a while, then came back and, of course, ran for mayor. So he is a machine, and he has outraised everybody.
Yeah, and we'll see if that machine delivers tonight. Fox 7 Austin's Jenna King is live at the Watson camp tonight with a look at how things are going there. Hey, Jenna.
Yeah, hey you guys, I'm here at El Arroyo in downtown Austin. It's been pretty quiet up until this point, but people are just starting to get here as that watch party starts at 7:30. I'm going to actually step out of the way so you can see what we're looking at here. You can see behind me that famous El Arroyo sign, of course, in a full demonstration, and lots of Keep Kirk signs, of course. I'm told easily over 100 people are expected to turn out here in support of the incumbent Kurt Watson. Kurt Watson has yet to arrive, but I was told earlier we thought he drove by. People got excited for a second, but nothing just yet. Hopefully he'll be here within the next half hour when that party does officially kick off. Like you guys mentioned, Watson's being challenged by Jeffrey Bowen, Doug Greco, Kathy Tovo, Carmen Yanis Polito. And something that's pretty interesting is the candidates are pretty vast in terms of their experience across the board. Like you mentioned, we have community organizers, former teachers, a construction professional who entered on the last day. So lots to say about all these different candidates. And so lots of excitement here in the air. They told me a lot of friends and family expected here. And so people just starting to trickle in. We're going to have lots of people starting to order some food, and know, the excitement of the day is in full swing as everyone here is pretty much anxiously awaiting all of those results. So I'm going to send it back to you guys.
I'm going to count that chips and salsa bowl that she may have. You know, but those chips disappear really fast.
They do, and it might be a good night for the Watson campaign. So we'll have to see. We do have some results, I believe.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the
from the
numbers
mayor's race, and looking good for Watson, at least right now.
Yeah, early on, Watson with 51% of the votes, a little bit more than 7,000 votes. Kathy Tovo following behind him closely with a group of closely knit individuals. Tovo at 15%, Bowen 14%, Yanis Pillow at 14%.
Yeah, and 6% there for Doug Greco. So a really commanding lead for the incumbent Mayor Watson. I think a lot of people wondering, you know, he only had 2 years, kind of a weird anomaly there. Or do people want to give him another 4 years to see if he can fulfill his agenda? We'll see.
Right. All right. Now let's move to another hot race and a big question mark as to what's going to happen with this race, and that's the Travis County District Attorney seat, which is the incumbent being up for re-election. That's DA Jose Garza. You know, he's been criticized by his conservative counterpart for being, quote, soft on crime, that individual being Daniel Betts.
Right.
Promises to lower crime here in the Austin area. And do we have numbers coming in on that now?
I don't think we do. I think we have... no, we just got the candidates right now. I guess we got to wait on numbers, but
you know, some
we
of the
can
things
talk
that
about
I've heard
this.
About that race and talking with some Republican operatives, you know, everyone's hopeful for a win, but they're saying that maybe it will be a moral victory with a very large number of people going for the GOP candidate Daniel Betts, and building off of that maybe into the next election.
Do you think Betts has a chance?
You know, anybody's got a chance on election night. You know, it's all about turnout. But, you know, the numbers, the tradition, the trends of Travis County, it is a dark blue island. But Jose Garza is very controversial.
He is.
And there's a lot of moderate Democrats who are not happy with him.
And it was interesting seeing the primary unfold. I think it was about a 2-to-1 margin there, where you had the progressive DA Jose Garza coming on the heels of a lot of controversial things that happened in the court system.
It's always what if, and if Jeremy Silverstein, who was the main challenger, if he had started earlier, if he was able to get a groundswell and get his position out there to more people, could that have made a difference? Yeah, so not necessarily a bellwether for what happens tonight. We could see the Republican faring a little bit better. It'll be interesting just to analyze the numbers and then look at it. It may not be a win, but it could be something. It's interesting. So I think we're gonna move on. We're gonna talk about the presidential race, kind of burying the lead there, but obviously that's what everyone's focusing on tonight. The razor-tight race between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Will it be? Will it be? Well, that's what we think. That's what we think. That's really interesting. That's what the polls would suggest. The polls suggest, and then a lot of folks are like, maybe the polls are undercounting. Let's take a look at the numbers right now. The numbers that are coming in right now show Harris with the raw count of votes at 56%. It looks like that's in North Carolina. And that's North Carolina. That's right. That's the North Carolina votes. Looking at the electoral college votes right now, Trump having a very large lead in front of Harris along that line. So it's still early, but something that we did notice, I noticed that Fox News has called South Carolina for Trump, and that could be a linchpin to what's going to happen in North Carolina. Yeah, and we got North Carolina, we got Virginia and Georgia, kind of those states surrounding it. Everybody's watching those. Along, everybody's talking Pennsylvania, but the Carolinas. What did the storm do to turnout? Right, or to attitudes there. Attitudes about the administration, and especially if Harris gets. We hear about the blue wall, we hear about Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Trump really needs those states in the South. As well as Arizona and Nevada. Yeah, both have legitimate paths to that magic number of 270. The question is that who's going to get that path? Which path is going to show up earlier tonight? And a lot of pundits are saying that we could start seeing trends and seeing a real path for one of the candidates early tonight. And most of them lean toward Trump getting that early path. We shall see. Do we have any more graphics for, I think we have Georgia here, right? Okay, let's see.
We've got Georgia right now. Donald Trump, this is interesting, leading with 57% of the votes. Kamala Harris is 43%. However, only 3% of the precincts reporting.
That's going to be interesting. And where are those votes coming from?
Right.
You know, is that Cobb County? Is that Atlanta centric, or are those numbers coming out of the more rural areas and outskirts? So it's going to be interesting to see how the urban numbers, those urban votes, how many came out today? Yeah. We got Pennsylvania. we talked about Pennsylvania a moment ago.
That's probably the state that's gotten the most attention in this election cycle. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but 19 electoral votes up for grabs there, and we got some results in here.
Yeah, and right now, strong numbers for Harris. But once again, only 5%, coming in. It's one of those things where you just gotta, you gotta wait and see how it comes out. And then, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, John, they wait until after Election Day to actually start counting the mail-in and early votes.
I believe so. Yeah.
And whereas here in Texas, we release 7 o'clock. We're going to start seeing and should start seeing the numbers here, at least the early vote numbers here in Texas. They'll show it to it, but in Pennsylvania, it's backwards.
And in a few swing states, I think, is similar situations where we're talking about days. So we may not have a winner tonight. hate to burst that bubble, but we'll see. But yeah, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, that blue wall that Harris would like to win. North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. Those are the states we're really watching.
Big one. All right.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to get ready to go to a break.
Yeah, I think so. We'll take a break. We'll regroup. We're going to talk about some bond issues when we come back.
Man, those are hot right now. So we'll be back in a moment.
Stay with us. All right, welcome back, everyone. We want to talk about some of the bond issues in our area. One of the major items here in Austin is AISD's Proposition A.
And it is a big one. Voters will decide on a property tax increase to help fund the school district. Fox 7's Angela Shun explains.
For the average homeowner in Austin, passing AISD Proposition A would mean an increase of about $412 a year. This would generate about $171 million, but the district would only keep a fraction of it due to state recapture. That's where property-rich districts pay a portion back to the state to be redistributed to poorer districts. AISD would keep $41 million, and the district plans to spend $17.8 million of that on a compensation plan.
Professional educators are really experiencing an affordability crisis here in Austin and in Central Texas. And for us to ensure that we have the absolute best educators in front of our students, we have to be competitive at pay.
It has market adjustments for teachers and staff, with the highest increases going to the most experienced teachers. 85% of staff would get a pay increase if Prop A passes. The ones who wouldn't get raises would be executive staff.
We are seeing attrition with years of experience. It does tend to happen in large urbans. People start their families and move to suburbs. It is happening exponentially because of the cost of living in Austin.
Here's a look at the average pay raises, starting at about a 1.4% increase for teachers at the beginning of their careers, and up to a 7.3% increase for the most experienced teachers.
This package is going to put us on market with our surrounding districts so that we remain, if not on market, even leading market.
AISD says they're facing a $92 million budget deficit. Inflation and lack of funding from the state contributing to this shortfall. If Prop A doesn't pass, regular employees would get a one-time stipend of $500. All this as the district continues to make cuts.
Right now, we're in the process of identifying additional cuts to the tune of about $90 million. We're going to take those cuts over the course of 3 years.
That was Angela Shen reporting. Obviously, Round Rock ISD has some major bond money on the table as well, talking potentially upwards of $1 billion. Fox 7 Austin's Lauren Rangel has a closer look. She joins us live with what is on the ballot and what's at stake there. Hey, Lauren.
Hey, John. Yeah, nearly $1 billion. The exact amount is $998 million, and that would be the largest in school district history if this bond gets passed. But it breaks down into 4 different propositions. So I want to walk you through those so you can kind of get a better idea of what this bond would do. The first one, Proposition A, is going to be the most expensive at $800 million, and that one would mostly go towards replacing roofs, HVAC systems, plumbing, repairing things in old buildings. It would also build a new building for a career and technical education program. Proposition B is the second most expensive at $125 million. That one is very heavily focused on IT support, Chromebooks, evolving technology, things like that. Proposition Z is actually the cheapest of them all at $8.6 million, and that is focused on fine arts programs. They want to update outdated stage lighting and sound systems. And then Proposition D is nearly $65 million, and that's focused on athletic facilities, things like lighting, scoreboards, and then even building a new additional athletic facility for the entire district to use.
Yeah, Lauren, this is Rudy. Years ago, they used to have just one bond issue, one really big bond issue, and we had several of them that went down in defeat. So they came back and said, well, maybe we should just start slicing these up, breaking them up into a kind of like a pizza pie, a smorgasbord, a la carte bond issue. So this is kind of a strange question. For the big enchilada, what kind of impact could this have for the average homeowner there if it passes?
Yeah, great question. So the school district actually says that even if all 4 of these propositions do get passed, not to expect tax rates to go up. However, we did speak with a group today that is actively pushing to say vote no for this. Of course, voting is pretty much over at this point, so we'll see whether or not that happens, but they're concerned that the school district would mismanage these finances if it does get passed, and residents would end up paying for it longer in the long run.
And speaking of finances, we talk about the deficit that the district is facing. Obviously, you got a deficit, that's why you got to borrow money. How far in the hole is Round Rock ISD?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. Round Rock ISD happens to be one of the only school districts in the state that isn't actually in a deficit for their budget right now. But the superintendent told me that a lot of the work that they need to do for schools is just too expensive to do with a regular budget. So that's why they have this bond in. And real quickly, to break it down, school districts use M&O and INS tax rates to help fund some of the things that they do. However, some of these things, the superintendent says, is just they have to do them. They have to fix the leaky roofs. They have to have an HVAC system in Texas because of how hot it is. So if this bond fails, then they're going to start pulling out of their M&O tax rate money that they get, which would otherwise be going to teachers and staff for pay raises.
All right, Lauren Rangel for us. Lauren, thank you so much.
Thanks, Lauren.
And we're going to move on to the race for U.S. Senate. That, along maybe second only to the presidential, is the one that people are really watching here in Texas. Ted Cruz, the incumbent Republican, of course, and his Democratic challenger, Colin Allred.
And the big question, is this the year that a Democrat could win a statewide election, take over this seat for the first time since 1993? Let's take a look at some of the standings where we see the numbers coming in right now. Do we have the numbers? Yeah, there they are right there. Can you see that, John?
Yeah, we got Ted Cruz right now, 49.6%. Colin Allred, 48.6%. So that is close.
And it's 20% of the vote.
20%. That's so a little better than some of the ones.
Yeah, so that really shows that this tight race is remaining tight. So Fox 7 Austin's Meredith Aldis, she's been following the race. Matter of fact, she is following it. We're almost at ground zero.
Yeah,
Colin Allred.
Colin Allred's watch party up in Dallas, right?
Right, up in Dallas.
Yeah.
Meredith, you there?
Yeah. Hey, John and Rudy. Yeah, they just opened the doors at 7 o'clock. It wasn't a mad rush, but some people are definitely trickling in and getting their spots here. There's a food truck outside. There's a bar on the side. There's a little photo op. And people are sitting at the tables behind me waiting to hopefully hear from Colin Allred when he eventually gets in. And they're anticipating what's going to happen when these votes start to get calculated. I would say the vibes are pretty good at this point. I saw a lady, looks like she knew who was walking past her, and she just said, "I'm so excited." So the vibes are good here, and they're excited to hear from Colin Allred and see the votes come in.
Of course, we're in Dallas because that's where Colin Allred's from.
Right.
Did he spend a lot of time today out there greeting voters, Meredith, or did he hunker down and just kind of like get ready for the long night?
Yeah, I do believe he was out at a polling location talking to voters, getting them excited to hopefully vote for him. But we have not seen him yet come to the Longhorn Ballroom yet, where his campaign watch party is happening right now.
Yeah, probably won't be hearing from him until late night if this stays tight.
If we even have a winner tonight, yeah.
Will we have a winner tonight?
Will we have a winner tonight? It might not just be the presidential that leaves us hanging.
Oh, will we have that?
we may not. We may have like Austin Mayor or something now.
That's right. I hope so. Yeah, we'll find out on that in that race. All right. Thanks, Meredith.
Meredith, thank
appreciate
you so
it.
much.
We'll talk to you a little bit later.
All right, got it, Meredith.
All right, we are going to move on to the opponent, or the incumbent, really, Ted Cruz, who, along with his opponent Colin Allred, has been launching a lot of attack ads. We've seen them kind of sparring on the airwaves in these last few days. Yeah.
You know, Fox 7's Angela Shin, she's in Houston. She's continuing our team coverage. She's down there at the Ted Cruz's campaign watch party there in the Houston area. Angela, what's the mood right now in that room?
Yeah, the guests just recently started coming in. You know, the mood, people are excited. They're anticipating what's going to happen tonight. Campaign staff tell me 1,000 people have RSVP'd for this event, and a lot of the guests have just now started coming in, but there's a lot more outside waiting to get checked in. We see Cruz's campaign slogan, "Keep Texas, Texas," all throughout the venue, and there's a big campaign bus out front. So people are excited as Cruz seeks his third Senate term.
Yeah, and it sounds like, you know, a lot of what has gotten us to this point has been the money, right? The money spent on ads, the money spent on campaigning. Angela, I wanted to ask you, which campaign has been spending more in this election?
So his opponent Allred has been raising more and in turn spending more. So data from the FEC shows that in the past year and a half, Cruz has raised about $43 million compared to Allred's $68 million. But even though Allred has outraised Cruz has the advantage of being the incumbent Republican in a red state. So despite that, you know, the money isn't. It's not going to hurt him because he has those advantages. And he narrowly kept his seat in 2018 in his race against Beto O'Rourke. And that race, O'Rourke also outraising Cruz, but then Cruz was seeking his second Senate term, so he already has that name recognition. And same goes for now. He has more name recognition than Allred, which helps him, even though Allred has raced more.
Yeah, and obviously, some of that money coming in from out of state, where you have a race that's so pivotal for the balance of power in the Senate, just huge spending.
Yeah, but so much money, and yet this race has been so much one-dimensional in regards to both candidates. For Allred, it's been the abortion issue. For Cruz, it's been the border issue. Angela, but are people talking about? All the polls say it's inflation. It's the economy. With the folks that you have talked to in the Houston area, and as this watch party, is it the economy? Is it the border? Well, what are they talking about there?
I think it's both. I mean, you hear the concerns about the economy. You also hear the concerns about the border. You see a lot of, for the advertisements from Cruz, he attacks the Democrats for not being tough on immigration. But on the flip side, you see Allred attacking Cruz for, not caring about reproductive rights. I feel like those are the two issues that both sides are really looking at: border security, reproductive rights. But then there's also the economy that kind of it's nonpartisan, the economy. We've seen a ton of ads, and even though we know Cruz is pro-life, but he's largely not addressed the issue of abortion throughout the campaign. Again, focusing on inflation, border security, and so we'll see what it comes down to tonight.
Yeah, he told us that the Supreme Court has spoken. It's up to the states. It's out of his hands, and that's his answer for the abortion
absolutely.
issue.
Our thanks to Angela. And he as far as Texas's abortion ban, he's really seemed to distance himself from that.
And he didn't have a vote.
He's
it's a state law.
Right. He's perhaps rightfully so, saying the state legislature decided that.
John, does it feel like the way that these issues are so separate that this one race feels like two different races?
It does. It feels like you've got abortion, you've got immigration, and then you've got the transgender issue, which Cruz is really trying to pick up and pin on Allred.
That may be the quiet issue, the quiet push.
Yeah.
If Cruz pulls this one out, the exit polling would be really interesting to read. Is that the thing that pushed people more toward his campaign than Allred?
Yeah, and it's not a lot of nuance with that issue either. It's just kind of, saying boys and girls sports, and, this candidate did this, and
it
we'll
came
have
in
to
late.
see.
It became hot late.
Right.
And so I think a lot of the polling may be missing that.
Yeah. What is interesting, though, I think, is, you look back at Beto O'Rourke, who obviously challenged Cruz in 2018, challenged the governor in 2022. It seems like Allred has been able to position himself more successfully as a moderate Democrat.
I've always said that the pathway to a statewide victory has always been the urban vote. Get the cities. If you line that up, those dominoes will fall, and I think that is the pathway. But you've got to have that moderate middle ground message to get the independents and the moderates to join in to close that gap in regards to what's happening between the Democrats and Republicans in Texas.
Allred really seems to have really gone out of his way to do that, sometimes distancing himself from President Biden on issues like immigration, distancing himself from Kamala Harris.
And your voting record isn't moderate, which Cruz has been hammering him on.
It has absolutely been hammering him. Yeah, we shall see. And I think we're going to take a break, but we'll be back with more of our election night coverage right here on Fox Local. Stay with us.
Don't go away.
right, welcome back, everyone. The polls have been closed for just about 30 minutes right now. Yep. At last check, we did see some voters still in line, and if you got in line before 7 o'clock, you can still vote. Stay in line. Yes.
Don't walk away.
Be patient.
Now, it's time that we check back with Fox 7's Katie Pratt at one of those packed polling locations. Katie, how have things changed in the past 30 minutes? What are you seeing?
Well, I do have a jacket on now, so that's changed. But yeah, I think the line is gone now. I looked back inside and I saw someone sweeping, so I'm pretty sure that means that they're wrapping up. I mean, you can look, all the security guards are starting to go away, so I think everybody has cast their vote here at Austin City Hall. They did have a pretty long line throughout the day. In East Austin, we spoke with one man who got his voting done earlier this afternoon with his wife, and here's what he had to say about this election compared to years past.
We have a former president that's back in the ballots to become president again, running for president. And then we have Kamala, which is, a woman of color. And so that's interesting. So I'm interested to know how it's going to play out.
So last check at 5 this afternoon, more than 84,000 people have shown up and voted today, and that number will continue to grow. The polls did close about a half hour ago, but as long as you're in line by 7, you can still vote. So we might go and check out another location that's busier and see if we can find some more people still waiting to vote. But for now, I'm reporting live from City Hall. Katie Pratt, Fox 7 Austin News.
All right, thanks, Katie, thank you. We do want to pivot now to the presidential race. I believe we have Fox's Connor Hansen, who is in Washington, D.C. He is covering the vice president's campaign. Connor, how are things feeling in the moment right there? All right, I'm being told we do not have Connor. Okay. All right, but yeah, well. But presidential race is...
today was one of those weird days where, what do you do? And one of the things that I noticed early on from last night was the vice president. She started doing some shoe leather campaigning, going out into neighborhoods in Pennsylvania, knocking on doors, meeting and talking with folks, and trying to reach out to voters, almost pulling out from the President Trump's playbook that he did earlier. And speaking of President Trump, we have Rebecca Castor, who has been following the Trump campaign over there. And let's hear with the results from the East Coast swing states. Rebecca, can you explain the importance both candidates are placing on states like Pennsylvania?
Yeah, Pennsylvania, that is the state I think everybody is watching tonight. That's also the closest path to victory for Donald Trump tonight. If he picks up Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, he will get the 270 electoral votes that he needs. So both candidates are saying that Pennsylvania is a must win. We're here at the Trump campaign's election night watch party here in West Palm Beach, Florida. Supporters are coming in. We're hearing cheers every time a state is called for former President Trump. The last one, we just heard some cheers for Arkansas. So the crowd's excited here, but it's a long night ahead. We're not expecting Donald Trump to make his way over here anytime soon. He's watching these returns come in at home at Mar-a-Lago with a small group of family and friends. We're told Elon Musk is with them. So we could expect to see both of them come over here tonight to speak to these supporters way later tonight. It's probably going to be hours.
All right, Rebecca, are there any surprise states that you've noticed that have come in? I was a little surprised that South Carolina came in for Trump so early tonight. Did that surprise you, or am I just overreacting here?
Yeah. No, I don't think you're overreacting. That one also, I would have said, if you didn't mention South Carolina, I would have mentioned South Carolina. So that was an interesting one. A Trump campaign official spoke with our Fox News digital team just a little bit ago, and they're feeling optimistic about some of the early exit polling that is coming in. They say that Trump is doing better with female voters than Harris is doing with male voters. So that was something that both campaigns were watching, because the polling in the days leading up, we were talking about this gender gap. More men were voting for Trump, more females were voting for Harris. So you needed to try to make up the difference there with the group that you weren't doing as well with. So the Trump campaign's encouraged by the exit polling they're seeing there so far when it comes to the gender gap.
All right. Fox's Rebecca Castor there in Florida with the Trump camp. Rebecca, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, that's she brings up that gender gap situation. Who's able to make? But that's almost been from the very beginning. If it wasn't the gender gap, it was who was going to catch those independent moderates.
Yeah. The gender gap was really kind of one of the big stories of this campaign.
I was reading an article that Fox and the Associated Press did a joint review of voters and released that this evening, and they were, gauging their mood.
Yeah.
And it's so much mixed messaging in it. People upset about the economy, don't think you're going the right way, and yet, it's still a tight race. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it is interesting, and it feels like a tight race. And I believe we do have Fox's Connor Hansen there for us I believe in Washington. Yes, with Team Harris. Connor, what is the mood among Harris supporters right now?
Well, Rudy and John, there is a lot of excitement here right now. We're on the campus of Howard University. That's Vice President Kamala Harris's alma mater. And right now behind me, the president of the university has taken the stage. He's delivering a speech to start off this event. But the entire quad here on campus is full. There are bleachers full, mostly students here. They've been cheering. There's been music. There's been dancing. There's even been a live TV feed showing some of the results of the race. People were cheering every time they saw the vice president up or winning a state, booing when they saw the former president winning. So this will be an energy-packed tonight, and we'll have to wait and see if any more stars take the stage along with the vice president tonight.
Yeah, Connor, it seems like there's a lot of momentum with those stars, those celebrities, as you mentioned. But is it cautious optimism, or is everyone just really excited and feel like they have that momentum?
Well, I think you hear from both campaigns saying they're cautiously optimistic, but now that these results are starting to trickle in, all eyes are going to be on these critical battleground states, and I'll start with the southern ones. People will be looking the most closely at states like Georgia and North Carolina first, because that's where we're likely to know first who will win. So they're watching that extremely closely, of course cautiously optimistic, but we saw both candidates campaigning in so many different swing states over the past week, but specifically Vice President Harris in Pennsylvania last night, not just giving speeches, but doing concerts. She had Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, other big stars performing to huge crowds with tens of thousands of people there.
Yeah, and they've been to multiple states in the course of one day over the last few days. It's really been
just
a lot.
It up.
Yeah.
Connor, it's interesting. She is the daughter of the university. We hear the cheering going on over there. It's really an interesting situation with her. The baggage that she carries being attached to the Biden administration, and yet the possibility of being the first elected female president of the United States, a woman of color.
Right.
This is. Is that feeling? Is that what you're feeling right now there at Howard University? This excitement of maybe we're on the brink of another major historical moment.
Definitely. I think this was a very intentional choice to be here at Howard. Obviously, such a well-known, historically black university. And you can see the excitement here. The people, you talk to them, you hear the reaction here behind me. They want to see history here tonight. They want to see the first woman president. They want to see the first black woman president here tonight.
All right, Connor Hansen, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Connor. I believe we do have some numbers to show.
That's right. We're going to continue this Election Day look at, looking at where we stand with everything on this big presidential race. The candidates both needing 270 electoral college votes. Trump currently on our big board, looking at the numbers there, starting with North Carolina
again. Do we have?
Boy, that's pulled in close from the last time that we were there.
It has. I believe we do. We're not able to see. That's what it is. We're not able to see the national electoral map, but we can show it.
Okay.
Okay.
101 Trump, 71
there
Harris
okay.
right now. So night is still very early.
Not a whole lot, I guess, we can take away from those numbers, just because there's a lot of states that are foregone conclusions for either candidate that just haven't been called
yet. Will that blue wall form tonight?
Will that blue wall form? Yeah, that is Harris's best hope to 270, or easiest hope, I guess, to 270. But we shall see.
You know, we were talking earlier with Rebecca about South Carolina, but another big southern state that we're tracking also is Georgia.
Yeah.
Let's see what the numbers there that we can see in regards to the Georgia. Do we have the Georgia numbers on that yet right now, guys? Can we take a look at that?
Oh, we got Georgia. Yeah, we have 55% Trump, 44% Harris, but 10% in. So more than we saw a few minutes ago.
And we're starting to get those numbers in. Yeah. That's right, and starting to get that feel. But that's a pretty big gap right now, even for 10%.
That is, especially...
And that's a critical state for Trump.
Especially when you think about what happened in Georgia in 2020 with not only Biden, but the 2 Senate races, both flipping Democratic.
But I spoke too soon. Critical states, there's one other one, right?
Yeah, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, right, the Keystone State. Boy, this truly living up to its name.
Yeah, the Keystone State.
Keystone State.
We are at 70% for Harris right now, 29% for Trump, 11% of those precincts reporting so far. Obviously, you think about things like Philadelphia, where if a lot of precincts from Philadelphia reported, we might see
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
And how does Reading play in the Rust Belt? What's going to with those voters and all that? A lot of time. Both the candidates really did a full court press in the last couple of days in Pennsylvania. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays. Also, we're waiting to see what's going to happen with North Carolina, another Keystone State. In this. It's a Tar Heel state, so who gets stuck in the Carolinas?
There we go. Rudy's got jokes on this election night. Absolutely. If Kamala gets the blue wall and Trump gets those southern states, that could really kind of lock it up.
That could really make it an interesting pathway.
And we could have a tie. That's possible.
That is true. I saw some of that.
Yeah, 269 to 269. I don't think anyone wants that.
No, I hadn't seen anything. We don't want to go back to the 1800s, right?
No.
All right, we're going to continue to crunch some of the numbers. I think we're going to take a break.
I think we are. We'll be back with more of the Fox Local Election Night Special right after this.
Don't go away.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are going to talk about some of the races for Congress here in, at least in our part of Texas. Let's take a look at those numbers.
Michael McCall is up for re-election. He's up against Teresa Bousselé. And Michael McCall has been a very strong Republican, and even though his district has had some ebb and flow in regards to the boundaries, he has been a fixture in Congress. And right now he has a commanding lead with 53% of the votes already in, 60% to Boussel's 38%. That's a pretty big number.
Notably not expecting a ton of surprises in the congressional races, at least in our area.
Especially just in Central Texas. Our Central Texas congressmen are pretty well entrenched.
Yeah, South Texas could be another story. We'll
totally.
see. We'll see. We have the 17th district, incumbent Pete Sessions. We can advance that. Pete Sessions with 64%, Mark Lorenzen with 36%, so kind of in that same bucket as well.
Then another very vocal individual here in Central Texas, Chip Roy, incumbent Chip Roy. He is in a race against Democrat Kristen Hook. Again, large number, 52% of the votes in. Roy is in somewhat of a little bit of a tight race, but has a good lead, 55% to 43% in that race. But, the Wimberley area and parts of Hays County, where this district is located, has a very strong Democrat grouping and voting bloc in that area. So it doesn't surprise me that Roy's in a tight race.
It's a little close. It's a little. I mean, most of the races here pretty cut and dry, but it is Central Texas after all. It's the Austin area, so. Right. We'll have to see as more of those results come in.
Going to take a look at the 27th district. That's incumbent Michael Cloud, who's running against Tanya Lloyd in that race. Cloud right now with a very large lead, 27% of the votes in. He's leading now at 62% to Lloyd's 38%, but that's still a little early in. But depending on a lot of this. This would be the early vote numbers, I think, that
a lot of
really
it,
influence that. So when you see that kind of gap, and then you have to gauge what is the turnout, and can she go and make up almost the $30,000 vote gap?
But we did see some strong Republican turnout in early voting, so we'll have to see. We have the 31st district here, incumbent John Carter with 59%, Stuart Whitlow with 41%.
And Carter's become a fixture in Congress, and the question is this his last hurrah? Is this his last big race? And he's showing out pretty well at 59% to that 41%.
And
then we have incumbent Greg Kassar, former city council member, against Stephen Wright. Kassar commanding lead right now, 71% to 29%.
And we've got the 37th district, incumbent Lloyd Doggett here in Austin with 76%. Looks like that race has been called. He has won that race over Jenny Sherry.
Is that a surprise?
That is not a surprise. Not a surprise at all. Lloyd Doggett here in Austin.
I think Lloyd is a bigger fixture than the Frost Bank Tower here.
Maybe a bigger fixture than, no, not bigger than Rudy Koski.
No. We won't go that far. Surely not.
All right. We do want to talk about some of the propositions. Again, we had bond issues, which were obviously really big. But marijuana is another big issue that's on the ballot in more than one community here.
And this comes after petitions in 80 cities got hundreds of signatures from community members placing the ordinance on the ballot.
Yeah, and we've got Bastrop and Lockhart, the two communities in our area that this is really going to the ballot, and people really passionate about this. Tan Radford joins us live in Lockhart, where you're at a watch party there, right, Tan?
Yeah, Tan, and usually in Lockhart, people are talking about the barbecue in that town, but now everyone's talking about the marijuana issue.
It's smoking and smoking.
Smoking and smoking.
That's right, John and Rudy. Like you guys said, people are very passionate here about it. And as you can see, the large turnout behind me on the screen. They do have results coming in by the minute, so it's in real time. And marijuana advocates, they're very passionate about what they believe here, and they've been very vocal in what they believe, pushing this to get on this November ballot here. So as you can see, it's a turnout. A lot of people in support of Proposition A here in Lockhart, and then in Bastrop is Proposition M.
There was a lot of excitement there in the Lockhart area, Tan, when this first started going. I know that you covered this issue well. the mood that you're sensing there in the room as those numbers coming in, where they seem to be confident at the beginning of the day. Right. I would assume the confidence is just growing, right, Tan?
That's right. The confidence is growing. You know, they believe in what they believe in here, and they've all made it out to the polls. Now they headed over to the watch party to see those results come in. I will say, for that to be on the ballot, they did have to sign a petition. Hundreds of people signed petitions in both cities. It took about 10% of qualified voters in Lockhart to even get this on the ballot.
Yeah, and Tan, obviously we're talking about decriminalization here, and lowering the penalty for low-level possession. What's kind of the idea behind that?
Right, it's not everybody's flaming up. This is just in regards to very specific, right?
Right, and you know, you guys, when we talk about decriminalizing marijuana, it's been done in a couple of cities here in Central Texas. But what I will say, there has been some pushback on it as well. There was a lawsuit put in by the Attorney General's office against marijuana advocates, but it was dismissed by a Travis County judge to reverse the decriminalization of marijuana in the city of Austin.
All right, Tan Radford for us there in Lockhart. Really feels like the tide may be turning in a lot of these communities on this issue.
And hopefully she'll bring back some barbecue.
Yes, absolutely.
That's just a personal.
Just some barbecue, that's all. All right, well, let's take another look into the Austin mayoral race. Mayor Kirk Watson up for re-election this year, facing off against 4 opponents. And here is a look at the results at this hour. Let's see if anything's changed. Not really.
Yeah, Watson still has his commanding lead, although we're seeing a little bit of separation with the others, and a little bit of flip that Kathy Tovo has now slipped to 3rd place.
Yeah, Carmen Yanis Pulido with 19%, Jeffrey Bowen with 8%. Fox 7 Austin's Jenna King is live from the Mayor Kirk Watson camp, which I believe is at El Arroyo. Hey, Jenna.
Hey, you guys. Yeah, definitely a different scene from when we last checked in. Way more people started to pile in here the last 20, 30 minutes. As you can see around me, I'll give you a look and step out of your way so you can see. Just a couple minutes ago, the incumbent stepped out. We're going to see if we can get a look at him over there. And he was met with a really big applause, shaking a lot of hands. And a lot of people really excited. The energy here is booming. In fact, the lights actually went out, which is kind of funny. But tons of people gathered here. We're also told that he's going to be saying a couple words here soon. But right now you can see, shaking some hands. Everyone is kind of huddled around him right now. And so, again, sorry about the darkness and all of that, but yeah, definitely a big crowded scene here, and a lot of people really pleased here with those results so far, as you can imagine.
Jenna, one of the things that Watson wanted to do and get done in his first term was that police contract. He put a lot of push on that, put a lot of his reputation on getting it done. It got done. Has there been any kind of indication in regards to what's next? What are people talking about in that room right now that you may be hearing in regards to what's next for Kirk Watson if he continues his lead and wins?
Yeah, in our interview with him, I think just a couple of weeks ago, he said, filling those police vacancies, it's not going to happen overnight, but, that's something that we're going to continue to work at. He says having that contract is a big piece of that and filling those vacancies, and so it sounds like it's a good start for him moving forward. But yeah, lots of chatter about affordability in the area, obviously being a big issue for a lot of Austinites, and so I know that that's been a big key issue on a lot of minds, and especially here.
Yeah, Jenna, and just to talk about the math for a minute, we've got 51% for Mayor Watson. That's kind of a magic number when it comes to his ability to actually win this thing outright, right? Talk to us about that.
for him to win, he does need to secure 50% of that vote, which is what it's looking like right now. Obviously, still more to follow as those votes continue to trickle in. If there is a runoff, that would be on December 14th. Like I mentioned kind of earlier, we had that runoff against Celia Israel back in 2022. So he's no stranger to runoffs, but I'm assuming he wouldn't want to try that again. But that's what it looks like as opposed to, moving forward in the race.
All right, Jenna, thank you so much. Our thanks to Jenna King. And
I think, he's going to look back if he pulls this one out and stays, and there's no runoff along that line. As he starts getting back and he starts saying affordability is the next thing, he's going to look back and say, boy, that police contract sure was a breeze. Because right now, saying affordability, that sounds great. Yeah. But how do you do that?
And we've been talking about it for several years now. You've had all these initiatives. Have they borne enough fruit for people that people are leaving Austin because they're going to Taylor, they're going to Hays County?
And tonight we have certain issues that could affect affordability in Travis County and Austin with bond issues and tax increases that we'll be talking about and crunching those numbers a little later. But I want it to be affordable. But, oh, I'm sorry, your taxes are going up. That's a hard sell, and people are going to remember that too. Yeah,
it's interesting though with Mayor Watson though, because it seems like people are kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt. We had 2 years. It was a shortened term because we've been talking about that, but it was a shortened term because Austinites decided to have the mayoral race coincide with the presidential. So now he's actually running for the 4-year term. But it seems as though people, they saw that pivot maybe from Mayor Adler and kind of the more progressive city council. And, he's a little bit more, a more moderate Democrat. And let's give that a little bit more of a shot.
What I'm hearing in talking with people in Austin, an emerging trend and want is just basic services. They're tired of the potholes in the road. They're tired of the congestion on the roadways, and I think that may be the voice that City Hall is going to need to listen to.
And that's not partisan stuff. That's me going about my daily life.
Get me out of gridlock. And brother, I-35 is construction just started on downtown.
I think Watson had an ad that kind of addressed that too. He's like, I know you hate the potholes, and he might have struck a chord.
Watson told me when he was a senator, you can't have an omelet without breaking a few eggs, was his line. We're about to see a lot of eggs broken with this I-35 construction, folks.
Yeah, just a few. All right, we've got more still to come here on Fox Local.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
right, welcome back, everyone, here on Fox Local. The polls just closed just about an hour ago here in Texas. But if you manage to get in line, and you're still in line, you won't be turned away.
You know, and at the polls is where we find Katie Pratt. Katie, last time we were talking to you, you were looking at helping out the janitorial crew with the sweeping at that one polling place. Did you help them out, or did all the work get done before you could get in there with that broom?
And did you change locations? Have you moved?
You know, I supervised a little bit, but I'm not big on sweeping. We did change locations. We're actually here at the church in Southeast Austin, and no one is here. So we got here, there's not one car in the parking lot. Seems like things are, you know, ending early tonight.
Didn't get to the church in time.
Yeah, right. I can imagine there's probably a few polling locations somewhere in the state that still do have crowds, but that early voting really may have made a difference.
Yeah, Katie, we were talking about that earlier, John and I, and we were saying that during a briefing earlier this week, the folks in Travis County were saying they were guesstimating anywhere between 100,000 and 200,000 people could show up today on Election Day. I'm getting the sense that maybe it was closer to the 100K.
Yeah.
What are your eyes telling you?
Right. So I think it was 46,000 was the estimate for the first day of early voting in Travis County. And they were saying that that's more than they've seen in the past 3 elections for the first day of early voting. So seems like a lot of people are coming out. But whenever I was asking the Travis County clerk about those numbers, she was telling me that that's actually because of the population growth, and it does line up with what they've seen in the past. It seems like a lot of people did the early voting. I've been following this basically all last week and this week, and I didn't really see that many people out today as I have last week.
Yeah. The people that you did see, what's kind of the mood among people voting today? Are they, super motivated to vote? Are they excited to vote? And, did the process feel smooth to them?
Yeah, it's always funny kind of approaching people with a camera on Election Day. You never know what reaction you're going to get, but everyone was really positive. They were excited to get out and vote and proud to, take a photo with their I voted sticker. Yeah. So overall, the mood seems great out here.
I was up in Williamson County. Thanks, Katie, very much.
Katie.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Williamson County, it was a mixed bag, too. Leander Library, long lines. Cedar Park Rec Center, man, you just walked in and walked out.
Yeah, and those I voted stickers, those seem to be like trending this year. Everyone's excited to get their sticker and get their discount, and I don't know, gets people to the polls.
Wilco had a nice one that I got, because, I voted y'all.
I'm going to find it. You gave that to me. I'm going to find it. Yeah. We'll show that to you in just a second. But we do want to move on and check back in on the race for Senate. Republican Senator Ted Cruz has had a tight lead over his opponent, Colin Allred.
But could a Democrat take over the seat, that Senate seat, for the first time since 1993, our first big statewide election victory by a Democrat in a very long time. Let's take a look at where the standings are right now at this hour.
Yep, we do have the results up there on the board.
Still a tight race.
A tight race, a little less tight than when we last checked in, but 51% for incumbent Senator Ted Cruz, 47% for his challenger, Colin Allred.
There are some folks that were saying that the Cruz camp was expecting to win this by 4%, but the Allred camp, they were still confident going in today that they will pull that upset. Fox 7's Austin Meredith Aldis has been following the race up in Dallas at the Colin Allred's watch party.
Yeah, Meredith, how's it looking there?
Yeah, it's looking great. There's definitely some more people now than when the doors first opened at 7 o'clock. They're taking their seats, anxiously waiting for Colin Allred to hopefully take the stage and make some sort of announcement. They're also watching monitors that are kind of showing what's going on, who's winning, what state and whatnot throughout the night.
The numbers are coming in and they're not looking good for Allred. Is there a sense of Paul a little bit there that you're sensing, or do people feel like that there's some boxes out there that are going to come and bring him over the top?
Yeah, I think the vibes are great here. I've seen people express that they're very excited, and seeing other people too, and kind of getting jittery about it. And y'all mentioned a tight race. I mean, this isn't the first time that it's been a tight race with Cruz. Remember in 2018, Beto O'Rourke? Okay, we have some cheers going on because there's a screen that shows Colin Allred, and he is, this must be one of his campaign videos. But anyways, not the first time it's been a tight race. Beto O'Rourke, 2018. Cruz only defeated him by about 3 percentage points, and polls for this race have indicated that Cruz is only going to win by 1 percentage point. So tight race, but been there, done that, and we'll see. And Allred does have a history of flipping a seat. So he did, when he was running for Congress, in 2018, he flipped a 22-year Republican incumbent. So it's possible.
Yeah, that's a good point that Meredith brings up. And you mentioned 2018 against Beto O'Rourke. But I think Colin Allred really tried to position himself as the more moderate candidate, really kind of make a break from that more progressive O'Rourke kind of vibe.
Take your guns,
yeah, exactly. Do supporters of Allred feel like he was successful, Meredith, in painting himself that way?
Hey, I am going to step to the side just because someone has taken the stage with the campaign, if you want to take a listen now.
Needs to understand, which is Texas is the biggest swing state in the country. We have the ability to make history here, election after election, and I think that this year we have already made history in the amount of people that we mobilized on knocking doors, on getting people out to early vote. We're doing a great job, and that is because of the support and help of amazing Texas Democrats like many of you, but it's also because we've been able to build such a strong coalition of Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and it is that coalition that is going to beat Ted Cruz. So thank you all for being here. We've got a long night in store for us, so now have a couple drinks, do what you got to do.
Okay, so as you can see, they're very excited, and they are saying that they're going to beat Ted Cruz at this point. So we will see. I'll send it back to y'all.
El Paso, remember, El Paso is an hour behind us.
Yep.
And it's now 8 o'clock.
The polls just closed there.
Polls just closed. So, will El Paso factor into this, and what will that do?
Yeah, definitely a fired up crowd there. Our thanks to Meredith Aldis for that report. And we'll be, of course, checking in on the air on Fox 7 in a little bit as we continue to get results coming in.
Right. Now, the opposite side of this coin, of this race, is the Cruz campaign. Fox 7's Angela Shen, she joins us now with our team coverage in Houston as she is watching what's with the numbers coming in with the Ted Cruz camp.
Yeah, Angela, how is the feeling at Camp Cruz right now? A little bit Cruz. Camp Cruz with a little bit of a lead, at least right now.
Yeah, people are excited. They're watching the monitors on the screen, and when they saw that lead, they were cheering. So people are excited. More people are coming into the room now. We saw a lot of people outside to check in. The event staff said they had about 1,000 RSVPs for this event. So people are definitely looking forward to tonight.
What is your sense on the issues of this campaign? What did this campaign really hinge on? What's your sense from these Cruz supporters on why are they supporting him? Why is their support so strong?
Yeah, the supporters I spoke to, they talk about conservative Texas. They want Texas to have that, the conservative values that they're looking for. They brought up issues like being pro-life, border security, the economy as well. Those are some of the issues that Cruz has been, hitting a lot also on his campaign, especially border security, and also just he's been attacking the Democrat stance on transgender rights a lot. And so, there's a lot of issues at the top of mind for supporters here, but definitely they think Cruz is someone who stands for Texas and represents its values.
And of course, the oil and gas community. There's no mistake of why he's there in Houston, and that was a big push, along with the border, along with the gender identity issues. Right. It was the oil and gas and hitting Allred hard. Are you getting a sense that there's a lot of oil and gas people in that room with you tonight?
I mean, it's hard to tell just by looking. I've seen a lot of people dressed patriotically, lots of reds and then lots of, red, white, and blue, just dressed as the American flag, if you will. Hard to sense, exactly what people are working in, but, they definitely talk about those conservative values. That's what they want to see in someone who represents Texas.
All right, Angela Shen there in Houston with Camp Cruz, as we're calling it tonight.
Cruz, I like that.
Angela, thank you. And you hear about those quote-unquote conservative values. That message, it's a concise kind of bumper sticker, but that Keep Texas, Texas may prove to be effective for Cruz.
Some of the things that I read about this race really echoes a little bit in Pennsylvania. We keep on coming back to Pennsylvania, but the oil and gas industry, Cruz was really hitting that hard in regards to Allred's record on LNG, natural gas exploration and trade along that line. And then Pennsylvania fracking is such a huge, big issue. And people don't think about that, but Pennsylvania is right behind Texas in regards to output. It's something that, as I was researching, I didn't realize that. I would have thought, well, Alaska or California, but and so there is this connection. So is that the big issue? I was thinking maybe the gender identity, but is it the oil and gas?
And that's something that came up in the presidential race as well, where people were going back to, hey, Kamala Harris said this about fracking back in 2019. Where does she really stand on it? Kind of a thing. So it seems like it's permeating more than a few races here.
And there's so much that's connected directly and indirectly. Granted, Texas has diversified. We're seeing a lot more manufacturing. We're seeing the chip industry. Biotech, the medical branch aspect of it all, but still you go back to Texas, and Texas identity is oil and gas.
It's interesting though that it definitely plays a role, but that's not what you see on the airwaves. It's from the Allred camp, so much on abortion, and from Cruz, so much on gender identity and the border. It seems like that's how each of them is trying to frame this, but we'll see. We'll see how that works out.
And it's interesting, the blueprint being laid out, the way that I'm seeing in regards to, and you mentioned this earlier in the previous challenge from Beto O'Rourke, where it was so hard progressive, hard left. We're going to go after your guns, open borders, and things like that. And then Allred trying to portray himself as more of a moderate, and then he kind of slipped back into that old Beto O'Rourke progressive aspect by going all in on the abortion issue. I can see the plan. Developing the playbook isn't quite there for the Democrats yet. But it sure is getting close.
It's a tough line to walk, right? I mean, when you have kind of that baked-in majority and you're trying to peel off votes from one side of it or the other. But,
and both parties are having an identity crisis right now, trying to figure out who they are in regards to the GOP, the new hardliners that are out there, and then with the Democrat Party, you got the new progressives and the old school Democrats playing out. And there's some races down in Houston, the congressional race, and what how that's going to play out in those old guard districts of Democrats, maybe changing of guard somewhat.
We will see. It's a fascinating race. It really is. Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with more after this. Welcome back, everyone, to our election special. Could Austin elect a new mayor tonight? Well, by the numbers that are coming in,
looks like it could.
No,
I don't know.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Maybe Kurt Watson has a pretty good lead. Let's take a look at the numbers, shall we? 51% with Kurt Watson right now. Big numbers, over 100,000 votes, followed by the other candidates who haven't even broken 20% yet.
No.
So it's a very commanding lead right now for Kurt Watson. And what's even more important is that 51%.
Right. We want to avoid a runoff, or he wants to avoid a runoff. I think Austin wants to avoid a runoff if possible, but
right.
But yeah, he's got to get that 51%. If he gets even 49%, even no matter how distant a second the other candidate was, we're going to a runoff. So that'll be key. We could still see a runoff. We need to see the rest of those results.
That's a big number. No one's not going to catch that number.
No, not in the runoff, but it's a hassle, right?
All right, council race. We have some council races.
Yeah,
right?
Let's move on to that. Several Austin City Council members are being challenged this year. Let's take a look at the results so far. We're taking a look at District 2. Vanessa Fuentes, the sitting council member, right now with 86% of the vote. We don't know how much of the vote is in, but that does look like a pretty commanding lead against Robert Reynolds.
And moving now to our District 4 race. Switch that over. Chita Vela at 62%, a very commanding lead over his three challengers. Monica Guzman coming in second at 26%.
And we have District 6, Mackenzie Kelly. Whoa.
This is going to be a big switch and an upset if those numbers hold tonight.
Yeah, Mackenzie Kelly with 48% right now against her opponent, Krista Lane. Mackenzie Kelly, obviously someone who made waves, is sort of the lone conservative on council, made a kind of sort of a sea of progressives at the time that she came in. And yeah, those are some interesting numbers right now.
That district is a strong Democrat district, and even though that this is a nonpartisan race,
right.
she is identifies as a conservative,
sure.
and that may be working against her right now. Moving now to District 7 race. This is interesting with some of the notable names that are in play, especially at the very top. Mike Siegel, 42%. Gary Bledsoe, familiar name in Texas politics with the state NAACP, and 19%. This one's still too early to call, but right now we could be looking at a runoff if those numbers hold right now.
And Leslie Poole, I believe, has reached her term limit, and that's the seat that she is vacating. We want to move on to District 10. District 10 seat also up for grabs. Excuse me. Allison Alter, similar situation, reached her term limit. Mark Duchin with 50.7% of the vote. Ashika Ganguly with 49.3% of the vote. So a very close race there. We got some interesting city council races. Who would have thought?
That's right. And then the big race here in Travis County is our race for Travis County District Attorney. And right now, no real big surprise out of this. Incumbent Jose Garza with a commanding lead at 69%. Republican challenger Daniel Betts at 31%. I know the Republicans, and we were talking about this earlier, they were trying for that moral victory, trying to get closer to around 40%. That 30% really isn't going to get it.
No, I don't think so. And honestly, a similar margin, at least it's looking like right now, to what we saw in the primary with Jeremy Silverstein, who certainly billed himself as a more sort of tough on crime, more pro-cop candidate.
Out of that litany of races that we went through, what's the surprise for you? For me, it's the Mackenzie Kelly.
Mackenzie Kelly. I was just going to say that she's someone who, she's a conservative, but was able to work on policy with more liberal members, and it seemed like she had a following among kind of moderate Democrats who wanted to sort of, correct back to what maybe they saw as a progressive overcorrection. I am a little surprised by that.
Yeah, and she really worked the neighborhoods.
She did,
and she responded. She wasn't a a council member that was missing in action. She was always in play.
She was out front. She was obviously an advocate for first responders, and someone that we saw a lot, kind of out and about.
The Bledsoe-Siegel race is going to be interesting. If that goes to a runoff, Bledsoe has got a really strong base. He is a known factor. Siegel's a known factor, but he is a part of that progressive group, extreme progressive group. And so if there is a runoff, I can really see the old guard versus new guard battle, and the gloves. I would expect the gloves would come off. In a runoff.
We shall see it. Runoffs are always interesting. We have kind of a collection of races that we end up finding ourselves in a runoff, and those are obviously potentially low turnout and low interest, but we'll see. We do want to move on to the presidential race, I believe.
We're going to continue looking at that with East Coast numbers starting to pour in, and start seeing the numbers right now. And in the North Carolina votes, as expected, a very close one, but Donald Trump right now with 36% of the votes counted at 50%, Harris trailing at 48%.
And I think we do have the national map here. We can't see it, but if we can put that up. I believe so far Trump has 177 electoral votes total. Vice President Harris with 99 total. Obviously, each candidate needs 270 votes to win the nomination. Those numbers right now don't really tell us too much.
Okay, sorry, I jumped the gun there.
No, you're good.
Now to North Carolina.
We can see different stuff than you guys. So thanks for bearing with us.
So North Carolina, Trump leading in North Carolina. That is a substantial. If that holds, that is the pathway for Donald Trump. And it follows up what we saw earlier this evening with South Carolina.
South Carolina, at least being called so quickly. We thought it would go for Trump, but not necessarily like that.
But Harris took Maryland and New Jersey. So, but it's really going to see how these dominoes fall out in the next few hours.
Yep. And what do we have? We have Georgia here, I believe, right?
All right, Georgia's another big one, and. Or are we going to talk about Texas?
No, we got Georgia here. 53% of the vote for Donald Trump, 47% for Kamala Harris. That's tighter than we last saw it, right? We got about 30% of the votes counted right now.
Right, and that's that's big, because that is Trump's pathway, going from Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina.
Yep.
And that's all leading toward that next one, and that's Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania numbers up right now, and really strong numbers for Harris at 58% to Trump's 42%. That with 22% of the votes coming in, that is a big gap, and that is a critical number. We're going to see how if Trump's going to be able to make up a very large gap. Michigan also leaning now toward Harris. But this is only 4% of the vote in, so can't really go and look and panic too much and take too much of those numbers. But 53 to 45%. And
the polls really showed a dead heat in that state, so it's really hard to.
I think the more monumental number is the Pennsylvania numbers.
I think so too. Yeah, and you got a decent chunk of the vote in at this point as well.
Right, and that's a huge gap that we were seeing in just the raw vote count. Count. I don't know where Trump is able to. I'm sure that there are people right now that are crunching, looking at county by county by county in regards to where can you make up those votes, breaking those down.
Right.
Because otherwise, Trump loses Pennsylvania, and that would be a tremendous loss.
It's a tough path for him if he loses.
But if Trump wins North Carolina, then that gets closer to that doomsday scenario that you were talking about earlier this evening, and that being a tie. And,
right.
What happens with the tie?
That's doomsday
for Congress, and it's happened before.
And it's half and half, right? One I think the House decides the president, and the Senate decides vice president. That just sounds like a mess for everyone.
It is a real mess. It is ugly, and it gets dirty.
Yeah. All right. So let's. We were talking about Michigan. Let's cross over Lake Michigan and go to Wisconsin, where we have Donald Trump leading. Not a lot of the vote in right now, 5% of estimated votes counted, but we got Trump at 55%, Harris at 44%.
Again, don't want to put too much into those percentage numbers, but but that is a key race.
That
Michigan,
is a key race.
Wisconsin, those are critical.
And that's, if Kamala Harris is going to, have what she perceived to be her easiest path to victory, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania.
She has to have those.
She has to have those. It becomes a difficult path without those, I think. So.
Yeah, those numbers are still coming in. Where are we going to go next to, guys? All right, Texas just declared, and we don't have the graphic. What are the numbers on Texas? Texas, no surprise, Texas declared for Trump.
Texas declared for Trump. Not a surprise there. No.
So now, what does that mean for the Senate race? And because the Texas race and for the presidential side was still close,
right?
Not as close as the Senate race, but what does that bode for the Senate race? Because we could be very close to finding out. Do we have a new incumbent, a new senator, and a split Senate Texas seat?
Right. Could we?
John Cornyn, Republican.
Yeah.
Colin Allred, Democrat, or is it still going to be held by two Republicans?
So I mean, and you look at, what are the scenarios where that could happen, where you could have Trump winning the state and Allred, winning the state. You either have people voting for one and not the other, or crossing their wires, right, and picking a Republican and a Democrat. I don't know.
It truly is a historic night, and one that is far from over. But it has been a wonderful roller coaster ride.
It has,
since we started at 7 o'clock this evening.
Been a roller coaster
looking back as the anticipation of the numbers coming in, and taking a look in of all those races right now. The feeling, and you still get the feeling from all those races that we dived into, from the mayor's race, Kurt Watson's camp, to Allred's camp in Dallas, Cruz's camp, Camp Cruz in Houston. They all feel like the night's not over.
Yeah, that excitement is really palpable, and it really hammers down on what election night is all about. It's the excitement of supporting a candidate and hoping they win, and we'll see what happens.
Well, it has been wonderful and an exciting experience to share the evening with all of you that have been tuning in and watching us online on Fox Local with this. It's been lots of fun.
Yeah.
And stay with us at 9 o'clock. We're going to kick back in and start crunching the numbers again at Fox 7 News at 9. You definitely don't want to miss that, because all the crews that you saw on our show will be back full force getting reaction.
They're hanging out there. We're expecting to get more results coming in. We're expecting more states, obviously, to be called in the presidential race. So a lot more of this election night still to come. We hope you can join us in half an hour with Mike and Rebecca over on Fox 7.
Thanks for tuning in. See you soon.
are back here on Fox 4, and we've got a race to call. The Fox News decision desk has called the Senate race for Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz officially deemed the winner in this race over his Democratic challenger. That is according to the Fox News decision desk. Matt, you're a little surprised this early, but they've got their ways of trying to figure this out.
I'm not surprised, to be clear, I'm not surprised at this outcome.
Yes.
I mean, I would have predicted that Cruz would win this seat.
Yep.
But I think in his heart of hearts, he expected to sweat it out a little more than this. I don't think he expected to have the race called by 8:30. I mean, I'm sure he's delighted, and there'll be a party at Cruz headquarters. But I think that he went into today thinking it might be a little closer than this.
Yeah, and then, I mean, you know, we've talked at nauseum about the uphill climb that Democrats have, right? But, I mean, there were some elements of an Allred campaign and some things that could have been possibly stacked against Republicans that would give Cruz some cause for concern. More women showing up to vote over the abortion issue. While Texas didn't have a constitutional amendment on the ballot, that's still one of the reasons why some women went to the polls. You have a change of the top of the ticket where Kamala Harris brings more energy to Democrat voters. And so now the question is, what went wrong for Democrats? Is it the turnout in the urban counties? What went wrong for Democrats is the question.
That is the question. And the reason Kamala Harris came here in the last couple of weeks and held that big event in Houston was not because she thought she could beat Texas, but it was to bolster this race, where the two candidates spent about $160 million on this Senate seat. So she came here. It was a battle over women's rights that she stuck the flag down there in Houston, hoping to bolster Colin Allred.
And I think that Democrats, in hindsight, might look at this and say, did we lean too hard into the abortion issue, making it the centerpiece of our campaign? Because clearly it's an issue that can work for them with some important constituencies, right? It can serve to mobilize some young women, single women, et cetera. But it may have been that there were other voters who said, every ad that I see for Colin Allred is about abortion. And, you know, surely there's more to this campaign than, quote unquote, Ted Cruz's abortion ban, of which there's really no such thing. We talked about, you know, because that's a state level initiative.
And Cruz made that point clear in the last week.
Yeah, that's right. So they may regret that strategy of being too single issue focused.
And Democrats could, and we still have a long ways to go, could benefit off of that being a singular issue nationwide in states that matter for Democrats. But in this race, catering to people where you have the border is still a huge issue in Texas and nationwide, but in Texas. And then the economy. I mean, people's talking about their bills at their kitchen table with their families. I mean, that goes a long way. And you have a president and an administration that is not as popular right now. And so, you know, uphill climb for Colin Allred, and it may be that the abortion strategy did not work.
This will be some of the debrief as well as who voted. We were talking a couple of breaks back on how the Democrats come back. It was a valid argument for them, and they had real people telling real stories in their commercials. But yeah, could it have been too much to the point of no return where you had diminishing results from it?
The curious thing we'll see as well is, you know, obviously if this is not close, if the final numbers shake out to not be close, doesn't need to send too much of a message to Ted Cruz. But I thought one thing that was interesting throughout this campaign was that we sometimes saw Ted Cruz talking about the things that he's done that are bipartisan. You know, talking about, you know, the ad about, you know, deep fakes and protecting children, working alongside Amy Klobuchar to get that bill passed. Does Ted Cruz realize, you know, with the Beto O'Rourke campaign, it was all about Beto being very liberal, Ted Cruz being very conservative, that maybe there are some voters in that middle range he appealed to when this was kind of a battle over who's more bipartisan in this race a little bit more.
We saw a kinder, gentler Ted Cruz in this campaign more generally. I think he tried to present himself as such. And look at the debate between Cruz and Allred. I mean, it was a spirited exchange. But they didn't insult each other, right? They criticized each other's views, they criticized each other's stances, but Cruz didn't try to go for the jugular against Colin Allred, you know, and I think that was part of his presentation of himself as a reasonable guy. He didn't want to come across as just a firebrand or a bomb thrower, and emphasizing the bipartisanship, I think, was part of that strategy.
And you got to know the candidate that you're running against, right? You got to know, you know, Beto O'Rourke is not Colin Allred, and so he had to take a different approach. much. And then you have, he ran ads from the soon-to-be ousted Democrat district attorney in Harris County running ads. And so, you know, the average voter doesn't know that she lost her primary and is not about to be the district attorney, but they see a Democrat supporting Ted Cruz. And so that could have played to some people who maybe were on the fence.
Even though Mr. Allred did the same thing in his border ads with the sheriffs from the border, Hispanic sheriff standing with him from the border. It just apparently wasn't enough. For him.
Let's talk about, we kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier in our broadcast, which is a couple of the interesting congressional races here in the state of Texas. And we'll work on getting the results of the screen in just a moment. The 15th congressional district, this is Congresswoman Monica De La Cruz, a Republican, running against Michelle Vallejo. This is a 2022 rematch. Republicans kind of champion De La Cruz as a sign of maybe they were winning some support with Hispanic voters. This is how it stands right now. 12%, so there's still plenty of votes to come in. But Monica De La Cruz with a very, very large lead in this race. This one of the kind of more interesting races that we've got in terms of congressional districts. What do you make of these results we have so far?
Well, I'm cautious because that's such a blowout that I just wonder where those votes are coming from.
Where the votes are coming from, yes.
But certainly that's one that Republicans hope and we're cautiously optimistic about retaining because they did see that breakthrough. That was one of their signature wins in South Texas, and they would expect to be able to retain that seat. I think the bigger question is to see whether Republicans actually can make a gain in South Texas in one of the other two districts that are Democrat held, and we'll see how that, like against Cuellar or and we'll see how that plays out.
And one other race I wanted to show briefly, the 34th district, that is U.S. Representative Vicente Gonzalez running against former U.S. Representative Mayra Flores. You see Vicente Gonzalez at this point in time with a very narrow lead in this race. Flores fighting to regain her old seat. Gonzalez switched from 15 to 34 when 15 was drawn to favor Republicans. One of those races that's close as well in there. As we go throughout the night, we'll be watching some of those congressional races, as of course the balance of the House is something that we are waiting for as well. We have much more Fox 4 coverage. We're going to get to some of the additional electoral results that are coming in. We've got races, more races that are getting called. Stay with us. More Fox 4 News coverage in just a moment. Welcome back to Fox 4's special coverage of the 2024 election. We're continuing to get results coming in throughout the evening. You'll see them scrolling at the bottom of your screen as well. And we also have the electoral map that I believe we'll get to in just a little bit moment as we're updating these numbers coming in. This is the races so far that you're looking at that the Fox News decision desk has called. Right now, 195 electoral votes for Donald Trump, 117 for Kamala Harris. So far, no surprises in the numbers that we've seen or the states that we have seen called, and still no battleground states have been called at this point in time, 8:41 in the evening. Hopefully we'll see a battleground result or two shortly, but at this point in time, we're still waiting for some of those numbers to come in. Kansas, Fox News decision desk has called. Interesting numbers in there as well. Matt was just pointing out that it looks like Donald Trump has pulled ahead, but of course they've got their models where they can the decision desk can look through and see where votes are coming in from where and how that will shape up. But potentially a sign of some concerns for the Trump campaign, or
There's something unusual happening in a little pocket of the country in the Great Plains, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska. None of those states are performing as strongly for Republicans as they would expect. Now, that could end up being meaningless. It could end up being just a blip on the radar screen and kind of an interesting asterisk about this campaign. Hey, Republicans underperformed a bit in their traditional strongholds in the Great Plains. Where it might end up mattering, though, is in the Nebraska Senate race, because Nebraska has an independent challenging the Republican incumbent, this independent has an outside chance of pulling off an upset. So if Republicans are running weak in that pocket of the country in the Great Plains, that could be a problem for Deb Fischer.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Sean, Stephen, what are you seeing in some of the numbers? What surprises you so far? What are you still most curious to find out? Obviously there's the obvious things like the battleground states, but some of the numbers you're seeing so far.
So I'm looking in places like Missouri and Iowa. I'm very interested in how Iowa shakes out. I don't know why. I'm fascinated by what I'm seeing now. Yes, it's early, but there's let me see what percentage.
16%.
16% in. It's very early. But I just want to see what happens across that part of the country. As Matt is saying, something interesting is happening. I think it's kind of saying that folks are looking at both of these candidates and saying, to some extent.
And keep in mind, Iowa's not that far from the battleground states, Wisconsin,
Michigan, yeah.
And so,
well,
that doesn't mean it's exactly going to go the same.
Iowa voted Democratic. Iowa supported Barack Obama.
Well, yeah.
So it's not like Iowa's got a multi-decade history of being solidly Republican. So it's not that far removed from partisan competitiveness.
It always makes you wonder, once you get to this point in election night, if some of these campaigns see some of these numbers start to come in and wonder, wow, if we could have spent our money a little bit differently, if we could have spent our time a little bit differently, how things might have shaken off. But a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking.
And the bigger part of this, or as big a part, is control of Congress.
Right.
And whoever becomes the president, whether they are able to get initiatives through.
Right. Yep.
And so that story is going to play out later, as well as the possibilities of Hakeem Jeffries making history as Speaker. So there's still a lot of important stuff left with these votes.
I will say, with Republicans holding the Senate seats in Texas and Florida, that goes a long way to saying they're going to take the Senate, because West Virginia is virtually a gimme for them.
Right.
They were pretty heavily favored in Montana, have a good chance in Ohio. Democrats were hoping to offset that by maybe pulling off an upset in Texas or Florida or Nebraska. Now, Nebraska's still outstanding, but the fact that Scott in Florida and Cruz in Texas held on pretty easily makes it quite likely that Republicans will end up with Senate control.
Yeah, Fox has already called West Virginia, and in Montana, he was polling 6+ points ahead in a lot of polls over John Tester, the incumbent. And so the expectation was, and again, there was a 51 Democrat, 49 Republican split going into tonight. If Republicans pick up those two, that was all they need, and they've already picked up one. We'll see how some of these other races, and there are still some other close races that we're watching. Ohio with Sherrod Brown. There is Nevada, Michigan, as well as Pennsylvania. Of course, we may not know the Pennsylvania Senate results as well, as it's one of those slower states to count and tabulate some of these votes. As some of these additional polls start to close in some of our western states, let's talk Arizona briefly. It's an interesting dynamic there, where Kari Lake, the former news anchor, has been polling far lower than Donald Trump. She's obviously made a lot of claims about election irregularity. No doubt probably will again, if that's the case, that she's trailing behind Donald Trump in the numbers, certainly. I'm curious with that race, why it is that that state is so in favor of Donald Trump and not in favor of Kari Lake. We'll wait to see what the numbers show, obviously, but this is based on polling, when she's modeled herself after Donald Trump.
Yeah, but people who have modeled themselves after Donald Trump have typically not done as well as Donald Trump. And Arizona is a state where Republicans gave away the governorship last cycle by nominating Kari Lake. And there's a very good chance they're going to give away a Senate seat by nominating Kari Lake. She can really fire up the base, which is what puts her through a primary, but she is not a candidate who is well suited to go from 45% to 51%, right? To win some voters in the center that it takes to actually win it. So I suspect she'll run behind Trump.
And abortion is on the ballot in Arizona, so that can play a factor in which way it goes. Driving some Democrat votes out on that issue as well.
As we look at some of these battleground states, I'm peeking up at our Fox screen right now, the Wisconsin presidential race. Harris has a slight lead in the state of Wisconsin. She's running at about just shy of 49%. With about 25% of the vote in the state of Wisconsin. Matt, sorry.
I actually think Trump's got a 1-point lead now.
Is that Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yep, it switched on my computer as I switched over.
But it's still really early and really.
It is still early. 25% of the vote in on that.
But she's not doing as well in some places as Mr. Biden did 4 years ago.
Yes, and of course, Biden carried that blue wall from Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, but Donald Trump had success there in 2016 as well. So we'll wait to see, as those results come in, how it shakes out. Michigan, very few votes coming in at this point in time. 13%. About 13%. Harris with 52% of the vote in the state of Michigan to Donald Trump's 45%, but a lot of numbers still to come in on that race as well. And 34% of the vote in Pennsylvania, to their credit, that they've got, but with Harris 51% of the lead. But as you shake out and look through, there's still some rural counties in that state that are not reporting any results. So when some of those rural counties begin to come in, we expect Pennsylvania to get a little bit closer than it's showing at this point in time. Stephen Dial, let's get a Georgia update from you.
What were you trying to say? Georgia is still trickling in. I mean, not trickling in. I don't want to make it sound like it's so dire. 79% in, and Donald Trump with a 52% to 47%. Trying to zoom in to see where the reports aren't coming from in Georgia.
It looks like still just, 71% from DeKalb now.
That's important.
So we're seeing Gwinnett, though, is low in there. Gwinnett just 16% of the vote in. I would imagine you would get some Democrat votes into that part of the state as well. All right, we're going to set it to break real quick. We'll be back one more time here on Channel 27 before we shift over to Fox 4 at the top of the hour for our full election coverage. We'll, of course, be checking in with our reporters at watch parties all throughout the state when we return. All right, here is a look at the map. These are the Fox states called so far. Donald Trump with a lead of 195 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 117, but still a lot to come in. Still some states that we expect him to go one way, and some of those battleground states that we may be waiting a little while to figure out how they shake out. No battleground states called at this point in time. Briefly, did we expect a battleground state to maybe be called at this point in time in the evening?
Should have been, right?
I think we might be getting close to Georgia getting called.
Yep.
Because that has the most vote counted, and that Trump lead of 5% seems to be kind of holding steady. But they're going to be cautious, right? I mean, they're not going to call it until they really are pretty sure. But certainly Georgia seems to be leaning Trump at this point, with a 5-point lead with 80% of the vote counted.
Of the vote counted.
Yeah,
but so that I would imagine that might be the first one.
Yeah, and in polling averages, that was maybe the Arizona was probably the state where Donald Trump was doing best in some of the averages of polling, but Georgia was probably second there in one of the states.
And think about, and this may go to that early voting turnout. I mean, Georgia set a record. More than 4 million people early voted in Georgia, about 54% of their registered voters, and a lot of that came from ruby red, very, very North Georgia that touched Tennessee. And so, I mean, some of them had like 70% turnout in the county. So this could be an early vote thing.
The Republican Party may realize how big of a problem it was that they discouraged early voting in 2020, or discouraged mail-in voting in 2020, when they realized there was a large number of people that clearly were willing to use that as an option.
Well, and it's really interesting. There was a lot of criticism of the Republican get out the vote effort and the Republican turnout apparatus, because Democrats have a very professional, tried and true turnout apparatus. They had more money, they had more boots on the ground, door knockers, all that kind of stuff. Trump essentially outsourced his get out the vote efforts to Turning Point USA and to Elon Musk. And a lot of people said, I don't know if that's going to work. Well, still some ways to go this evening, but if things continue to go well for Republicans, particularly with these turnout numbers, I think people are going to say that worked better than we expected. They managed to get the vote out to a greater degree than we might have anticipated.
Elon Musk certainly had the money to get the message out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially in Pennsylvania.
Want to show real quick Senate results. We mentioned that Fox News had called the race for Ted Cruz. Still waiting on an Associated Press call in that race, but 53% of the vote for Ted Cruz, 45% to Allred. And then we'll talk real quick about our propositions one more time. ST&U with the law enforcement propositions in the city of Dallas. These are the bills aimed at surveys that would affect the city manager's pay. S was suing the city of Dallas. This is S right here. We are still waiting for a lot of results in these races. So we will have much more coming up at 9. Hopefully, we'll get some of those results in. But still was interesting to see in the early votes the divide in some of those as well. We're getting ready to wrap up our coverage here on Channel 27. But we got a lot more coverage to go and a lot more races to call in this night. Tune over to Fox 4. We're going to see you at the top of the hour with Steve Eager and Clarice Tinsley.
your side. This is Fox 7 Austin News at 9.
Tonight at 9, will history be made with Kamala Harris as the first female U.S. president, or will Donald Trump make a comeback as the nation's 47th president?
Also, another big race to watch tonight. Ted Cruz is fighting Colin Allred to keep his seat in the United States Senate. That seat has not been taken by a Democrat in more than 30 years.
And marijuana decriminalization is on the ballot tonight in Bastrop and Lockhart. We'll take a look at what this could mean for both cities if the propositions pass.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Warren.
And I'm Rebecca Thomas. All eyes are on the White House as we wait to find out who will be the next president of the United States, Vice President Kamala Harris or former President Donald Trump.